Hi, this is Mass Rundown. If you enjoy movie reviews, short and trailer reactions, you're in the right place. So why not subscribe and hit the like button down below.
Today we're reviewing Scream 4. Scream 4 is a 2011 slasher film directed by Wes Craven. It stars Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, Courteney Cox as Gail Weathers, and David Arquette as Dewey Riley.
Sidney visits her hometown after 10 long years. As she catches up with old friends, her return beckons the next appearance of Ghostface. The good. I'm really surprised that Scream 4 managed to maintain the overall tone of the Scream franchise.
Even with so much time passing between them, it still felt like Scream.
Definitely.
And we've been watching them pretty much in quick succession, so it was very clear this is the same franchise. They didn't lose that feel. Like the Halloweens and that often sometimes felt like completely different movies.
Yeah, they went on another plane completely.
This all feels the same. And they really brought it into the modern era a bit because there's cell phones now, there's new technology, people are filming themselves, so it's more, everybody's in the social It really transitioned well from 90s to late 2000s, 2011, so early, what was the 2010s called? But there was a good transition. And they started speaking more about modern horror films, like there's mentions of Saw. And so it really is a complete transition from talking about stuff like Halloween to talking about stuff like Saw.
And I think that's what Scream's strength is that they've updated every time. Yeah. It's always felt like the same franchise, but that they're keeping up with the times.
Yes. The constant narrative on horror movies.
Yeah.
So I'm actually wasn't happy that there was a fourth one to start with.
Because the third one ended off quite well.
Yes, and I wasn't happy to hear there's a fifth one. But it actually makes sense now that I think about it. We got this commentary going on, and I really hope the fifth one feels the same. It continues the narrative of discussing horror films.
I feel like this movie was a lot more intense than the third movie though, because it was a lot more gory, and the kills, even from the first kill, you could see so much more blood and everything.
Yes, and Ghostface was meaner this time. Like there was a tormenting, like an enjoyment of tormenting everybody in this, and it wasn't like an escalation in the other phone calls where they started off like teasing a bit and then it escalated and they lost their temper. They just started off mean in this one. Like there was no escalation.
And you could definitely see the killer's personality through this, because it felt a lot more personal from the start, because they were like directly teasing Sidney and the fact that her mom got murdered and all of that. So it just felt so much more intense, and it felt like Ghostface was actually a person.
Yes. And I think that's also a strength of the series. Ghostface has always felt like a different person in every single movie. And it makes sense because Ghostface is a different person every time. So, yeah, they're going to have different quirks and MOs a little bit. And I like that they've not made it a faceless, similar bad guy throughout.
Yeah. And I'm surprised that the last act was still really good, but I mean, it is always good.
Yes.
And there was enough twists to make it interesting.
And just intense, because it might be one of the more intense ones, actually.
Yeah.
They really stepped it up a notch.
And almost more surprising, because I'm not sure I actually saw who the second killer was.
No, I was surprised. And, I mean, it must be said, 4 movies in, it's not got old, it's not got stale. It's still surprisingly good and surprisingly enjoyable. And it could easily get very repetitive and, another Scream movie. But I've been enjoying them, and every single reiteration has been enjoyable.
Yeah, especially after watching like all the Halloweens and stuff, I feel like I got tired of them very easily.
Yes.
Whereas this has been actually interesting and good the whole time around.
And then this like straddles a line between good and bad. The movie was made to, I think, introduce Scream to a new generation because you've got a lot of young actors in it and they do take center stage. But Sidney is still the driving force. And it's weird having the driving force, the hero, be somewhat pushed into a background character. So I get what they were going for, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Sidney being a background character in a movie that she's driving forward.
I think they just want to keep the franchise alive.
Yeah.
So they're trying to introduce new characters because obviously Sidney can't be there forever.
And I get that, but the way the movie turns out, all the new generation is dead. So, yes, but also we killed the new generation, we kept the old. So it's a weird choice. I get it, but at the same time, I would have liked the story to revolve around Sidney a bit more and for her to be more central.
Yeah. That takes us to the bad. My least favorite part of this movie is the beginning of the movie, because it was a movie within a movie within a movie within a movie, and it just got a bit too drawn out. I think if they'd done it like once, it would have been fine, but it was just, I didn't like it. And I almost thought there was going to be a cuck movie.
They could have cut out that beginning scene and it probably would have been for the better. The movie's done very well, once you're not parodying, but once you're commenting on something, it's very easy to move into parody and to move into silly and
just too much.
Just too much. And the beginning was that. The movies have done very well not going into that, but just that first couple of scenes was, it's like they thought, we know we're being meta, so we can do this, and everybody will be like, oh, that's so clever. It wasn't.
Yeah, they were trying to be too meta.
Yeah.
And I think, for me, there isn't really any other bads. I think the only bad, but it wasn't bad for the movie, just bad for the killers, is I don't understand why they keep on going after Sidney. Everyone dies, and she survives, so I don't know why people think they're going to kill her. They're like, I'm going to be the special one and manage to, one-up her.
I just think at this stage, if you're putting on that Ghostface mask, the last person you go after is Sidney. Go after everybody else because you tend to be fine. But Sidney, just stay away.
Yeah. She's almost become that invincible entity in the horror franchise. Instead of like with Halloween and Jason and all of those, where the killer is the invincible entity, she's the invincible entity, which is interesting because it's such a twist.
Yes. And she gets stabbed and she gets knocked down and she goes through the ringer, but she always just keeps going and kills them.
That's why I say invincible entity.
It is. That's weird.
I think overall I gave it a 7. I enjoyed it, but, the beginning.
I'm giving it a 7 as well. It's pretty much in line with the rest of them, and it's still very enjoyable.
Who should watch it? I think anyone who enjoys the Scream franchise, and if you enjoy horror movies, you'll enjoy it. Because you don't necessarily need to have watched the other movies to enjoy this one.
No, you pretty much get enough exposition. I mean, with being introduced to a new generation, the new generation talks about the previous movies, so you've got enough background to just watch this one.
Yeah, so you don't even have to have watched all the others.
So literally, the only bad we had was that first scene, and let us know in the comments down below. Did you enjoy that first scene?
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.
Later.